We're really happy to welcome back to the program Quincy City Council President, Councilor at Large Nina Liang, for an update on the latest City Council meeting. Hi, Nina.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks for spending some time with us. Appreciate it as always.
Of course.
What is new in your world? How's campaigning going before we talk about City Council?
It's good. It's been quiet out there, but folks have been great. We've only got a couple weeks left to go.
I know we want to remind folks, of course, November 2nd, the Quincy municipal election, and early voting begins October 25th, runs through the 29th, 8:30 to 4:30 at Quincy City Hall. Plus, mail-in voting is available again with a drop box right outside City Hall, and you can cast an absentee ballot right up until Monday, November 1st at noon.
Lots of different ways to vote. So I encourage folks to please make sure to go out and cast a vote. There are a couple of contested ward races. Obviously, at large, we're all on the ballot as well, and school committee too. And I think in talking to a lot of different folks. I mean, I don't have kids myself, so of course I don't have any kids in the school system. But the school committee is responsible for managing the largest portion of the city's budget every single year, right? So if you look at our taxes and our spending, and there's a lot of different spending that's happening across the city, school committee is responsible for the biggest chunk of that, and so whether or not you currently or, have had in the past or have never, had kids in the school system, it's really important to make sure that you're electing folks to manage your money properly, right? And so a lot of amazing candidates on the ballot this year for school committee. But, across the board, I just hope that people will make sure to get out and vote, whether it's, to your point, right, the absentee ballots or the mail-in voting or the early voting, which starts next Monday. Or like me, I like voting on election day. I like the hype and energy of election day, so I'll be going out on November 2nd. But whichever way people decide to vote, I really, really hope and encourage people to go out and vote.
Yes, I was talking to the city clerk, and she's hoping for at least a 15% turnout, which would be, about double the preliminary. So we're really hoping for that. And we advise folks to tune in here to QATV on November 2nd at 8 p.m. for our live coverage, which, Nina, we hope you'll be a part of.
Absolutely. It's always it's tradition, right? It's tradition, whether or not, because I did it for the preliminary too. And thank you for having me for that. I wasn't on the ballot then, but it's tradition, right? You start election day super, super early in the morning. It's freezing. It's dark out. You get your dunks and then you drive around, you get to chat with all the election workers, which, thank goodness for them. They work insane hours that day. And this is this buzz that happens around the city, right? And then we wrap up the night at QATV, right? So it's tradition and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, great. We appreciate it. We look forward to it as well. But in the meantime, we have business to attend to, like City Council. What happened last night?
Yeah, let's shift hats, right? So so we had a regularly scheduled council meeting last evening, and a handful of items that were on there. And although quite a number of them had passed, they had also moved into committee. And so we talk about this a lot whenever we do a recap of the council meetings. But whether or not an item passes, whether it's an ordinance, which can essentially change law or turn into law, or it's a resolve, which is, sort of a formal declaration of the council. When they get placed into committees of the city council, it allows us the opportunity to have then, these committee or subcommittee meetings to dive in and have more in-depth conversation about them. So when it gets introduced and passed on the council, they can either just pass and that's it, or they can get passed and then put into these committees so that we can hold committee meetings, committee hearings on them, engage the public in the conversation as well. So quite a number of the items last night went into different committees as well.
Yeah, resolutions, looks like from Councilor Palmucci regarding the Fox Rock proposal. What happened with those?
Yes, so two different proposals that came in from him, which it sounded like we all, resoundingly were really supportive of. Myself, of course, was excited to see it come in. It's an unbiased sort of explanation of it, right? One of them, the first one that came in is to essentially seek a hearing, essentially an update, right, from Fox Rock to just let us know what's going on with the land disposition agreement that we agreed to. So the land disposition agreement, or a lot of the times we refer to it as an LDA for short, right? So a lot of folks sometimes will hear the term LDA, in a meeting, it means land disposition agreement. And that's an agreement between a developer and the city whenever a developer, it takes over public land essentially to develop something. So, the city had owned the Ross lot, and there are some parcels in the downtown that are privately owned. And so when there's a developer that comes in to develop on privately owned land, it's a private transaction, right? Like it's like if somebody comes and purchases a home, it's a private transaction. When it's on public land, the agreement is referred to as an LDA, this land disposition agreement. And years ago, back in 2015 or 2016, when I first got elected, I wanted to make it so that we had this opportunity on the city council to actually be part of that process when developers come in and develop on publicly owned land. And so, when we looked at this LDA, this agreement, this sort of contract between ourselves and Fox Rock to see, you're developing on public land. What does this entail? It really affords us the opportunity to engage the public in that process and to make sure that we have, some agreements that we're coming to, right? I mean, there's not that much land left, right? You can't make more of it. In fact, there's less of it as time goes on with, water rising, and that's a whole different conversation. But in any case, there's only so much public land left, right, for us to sort of work with developers with and see what it is that we want to have happen in this space. So anyways, there's certain things that we want to see on this land being developed, like affordable housing, right? We maybe want to see something to do with the arts, and everyone has different notions of what they would like to see, right? But this discussion around an LDA is our opportunity to have that conversation with whoever comes in to develop. So we had that conversation, it had passed, and it's been quite some time. It's been quite some time. And granted, it's been a year and a half of a pandemic, right? So by no fault of any single human being out there, there's been a massive delay on plans for everyone across the world, right? So that part of it we understand. But there needs to be an update at this point, right? Pre and sort of post, we're not really post-pandemic, but we're sort of starting to come out of it. People are curious. We want to know what's going on. It's a very large piece of land in the downtown. There's incredible potential in that area. The plans that I have seen anyways for what's being proposed over there, really has, I think anyways, an incredible value, incredible potential. But I think because of that, we're all eager to see it happen, right? We want to see this commercial space. We want to see this. I certainly want to see this commercial space come on the tax books, right? To help our residential taxes. So for a number of reasons, we want to see this move forward, but it's been quite some time and we want to know what's going on, so we would love to have Fox Rock come in front of us to give us an update. So that was the first resolve that Councilor Palmucci had put forward. The second one specifically has to do with making sure that it's, a safe work site. That's how I interpret it, right? I think, and I can't not think about what happened at Assembly Row in Somerville years ago when they were first building out that space. And, this is a horrific accident out there, and a life was lost, and Assembly Row is a beautiful space. We own a restaurant out there. I mean, it's a gorgeous face. It really has changed the face of that area, right? In Somerville, when people used to refer to it as Slummerville. I mean, look at how much it's changed now over there, right? I hate comparing ourselves to Somerville, so by no means am I doing that. I'm just saying that if you're thinking about a really, large scale anchor development that can really shift, a city and sort of moving in the right direction, the last thing you would want is to, God forbid, have something like that happen here. Again, that's I can't not think about that whenever I'm driving even past Assembly on the highway, right? Remembering this very young gentleman lost his life on that job site. We don't want that here. We want to make sure that our workers are being safe, that whoever is working here in this city is making a living wage, right? Is able to put food on the table, is able to pay his or her bills. And, with so much development happening here across the city, we are a blue collar city. We have a lot of folks here in the city who can and should be, working on these jobs, right? They shouldn't be driving 2-3 hours away to do so. And we just, for a number of reasons, we want to make sure that everything is done properly. Again, it's a very large development. I see it as an anchor development, right? There's a lot riding on it. And so that's the second piece of the two resolves that were brought in last night. Okay.
And was there votes taken on them?
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, it voted on, was passed. They were just resolved, right? Because it's essentially, we collectively are resolving to ask and formally ask for these two updates to come in. So it was passed and unanimously. And then it got moved into Oversight Committee, Downtown Committee, as well as Public Safety Committee. So 3 different subcommittees. And moving forward, the way that we can now address it is that one or all 3 or some combination of the 3 can hold a joint meeting where, members of those committees, which all 9 of us are members of the Oversight Committee. Mm-hmm. So we could all come together and say, we're having this committee meeting to talk specifically about these items, right? In committee, when we're meeting on those items, we're not discussing anything else. We're not voting on anything else. We're we're here to have a very specific conversation where we can engage the public on it as well. So it's in those committees now. And, I'm looking forward to those committee chairs scheduling meetings.
Okay, yeah, I know that Fox Rec is supposed to be coming before the planning board sometime in November. Did these resolutions specify any date for when you'd like them to come before the city council?
No, I mean, I think across the board, we're pretty much looking at ASAP as soon as possible.
Okay.
Logistically, there are some advertising things that we need to be mindful of, right? We, of course, want to make sure that there's ample time to get the notice out there. That falls, under open meeting law as well, right? There's some requirements that we have to follow with advertising. But in a practical sense, we want to make sure there's ample time to get notice out there, right? Make sure we, of course, let you guys and, QAT, the Quincy Sun and the Ledger, and just make sure we get it out there so people know that it's happening when it's happening, right? So we would never go into it saying like, oh, well, Joe, we had the meeting last night at, 7:30 p.m. and now we're having the meeting right now. Like there's going to be ample time in between to let people know. So we can make sure to engage as many people as possible to the meeting. But we want to try to make sure that happens as quickly as possible as well, right? Like we don't want this meeting to get prolonged, of course, because like I said, I think this is an anchor development. There's a lot riding on it and we've invested a lot in it already. And so I think we're all curious to hear an update.
Okay, very good. And then moving on, a resolve from Councillor Harris.
Yes, two different resolves submitted by him. One was actually, we'll go to the first one that he had submitted. So the first of two resolves that he had submitted, again, were passed unanimously. And this is just a reaffirmation of the city council, of course, with the leadership of Councilor Harris, to essentially work with, I always mispronounce the acronym, so I was going to say it's MICDI. Essentially to say that thank you. But it has to do with just the preservation, right, of the preservation of what's happening because of the impact of the discussions around the Long Island Bridge and what's going to happen with the development. And, I just mentioned earlier a sort of snippet of, environmental factors that has a lot to do with it as well. But specifically, this resolve is to make sure that we're preserving and respecting the land that's out there right now, right? I think my eyes have been opened, and I would hope a lot of others have, with Councilor Harris's advocacy on this, right? And just making sure that this land that has such rich history of, people who have so many ancestors and so much history and familial history in this space, that's being respected. I don't know that a lot of people know about that. Mm-hmm. And so, we have talked about it previously on the council before. We've taken positions, again, in support of, behind the leadership of Councilor Harris, to make sure that we're having these conversations. We've had presentations in front of the council before. And this is a reaffirmation of that because, to the point of, the elections being right around the corner, whoever the next mayor of Boston is, right? And this is, like Councilor Harris had said, a bit of an olive branch, right? And saying that let's extend this olive branch and make sure that the next mayor of Boston, whoever she is, I love saying that, by the way, so whoever she is going to make sure that they're also prioritizing this partnership with MICDI, right? And that we can hopefully together as these two cities that are facing the same problems, right, with this opioid epidemic, can come to a solution together in partnership with MICDI because they have a stake in this land, right? Mm-hmm. So we're happy to support that. And again, I just want to commend Councilor Harris for, again, continuing to lead this effort for us. It's been a super eye-opening educational experience, and it's a partnership that we've been looking for a long time. Where actually, Father Bills, if folks have gone over in that area, they're rebuilding, right? And they're expanding on their services. I mean, this is something that, and we were, the city was a part of that process. The state was part of that process. We by no means are saying, let's again, stop these, facilities from being built. If anything, we're part of encouraging it and making it possible. But again, I think it's important to recognize that Councilor Harris is also trying to make sure that while we're doing that, we also need to make sure we have a partnership in these conversations with Boston, right? We can't solve the problem as a city on our own. This problem does not understand borders, right? So whether it's Boston or Quincy or any other city or town in the South Shore, if we don't come together and partner to solve this problem, right, it can't be I'm just going to, quite literally toss this problem over the bridge, right? Boston can't just do that. And we certainly can't just do that as well. And we need to make sure we're coming together to have this conversation. So again, he has been nothing but trying to encourage that kind of partnership. And so last night's resolve was not only a reaffirmation to say that as a city, we're committed to partner with MICDI, but also let's make sure we're bringing in Boston as a surrounding neighboring city, next to us to be part of that conversation as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, well, the whole issue of mass and CAS has become a major campaign issue during the Boston mayoral race. So it sounds like Councilor Harris wants to, be part of that conversation.
As we should be, right? Again, I think that it's important to recognize that this problem it does not recognize borders. I have a very, very dear friend of mine who unfortunately lost her partner, and I know quite a number of other people who have lost people close to them. They come from so many varying backgrounds, right? And have so many different upbringings. And this is something where we need to come together to find a solution, right? We can't just say it's Boston's problem or it's Quincy's problem, or it's, I heard there was a city councilor in Cambridge who was saying that they wanted to be part of the conversation too. It's not just Cambridge's problem, right? It's not just Mass and Cass. It's happening everywhere. It's not just people who are physically out there experiencing this problem. It's people in homes experiencing this problem. It's our neighbors experiencing this problem, right? It's all across the board. If this isn't something that we come together and put all of these minds together to find a solution, it's to our own detriment, And so I'm really grateful that Councilor Harris is still making this a priority, making sure that we're all continuing to make this a priority, because it hasn't gone away. If anything, the pandemic has just made it worse, unfortunately. So, yeah.
So does that resolution go into any special committee, Nina, or is that just kind of a public statement?
No, we passed it and we said, this is what we want. And, again, I'm hopeful that past November 2nd, whoever the next mayor of Boston is, I'm hoping that we can all come together to make sure that we address this moving forward together, because again, this is something we're all facing. We're all responsible for putting these minds together, finding the best resources as possible to come together and find a solution. So it's sort of I believe anyways, and I saw it as this a sort of stance that we're taking to say, this is where we are. We want to work together. Let's do so. Right. And so we'll see what happens.
Okay, very good. And a little bit of a lighter note, no pun intended, issue about lighting on Quincy Shore Drive.
Yes, another thing that he and actually, Councilor Freeland too was championing this when it came to we've spoken about this before, the traffic right on some of our main arteries, and not only is congestion a huge safety issue, lighting obviously is as well, right? And, Quincy Shore Drive is so active and still is, even though it's getting colder now, which, I'm in denial about, a lot of folks use Quincy Shore Drive morning, afternoon, evening, right? Walking their dogs, running, driving, biking, whatever it is. And if we don't have proper lighting out there, yes, we are a city, but it can get dark, and it's dangerous, frankly. And so Councilor Harris has been asking for quite some time now, let's get these lights fixed. It's a simple request, right? People are utilizing this area. It's the last sort of days of, decent weather, right? Where you're not shivering too much going out in the cold, and people are still really active down on Quincy Shore Drive. And so, it's state owned, and, we put in these requests and we hope that it'll get done. And he's been asking for quite some time and it wasn't getting done. So he submitted this resolve to say, we need this done right now. There's no longer let me send you an email and, give you a call and can I get this? He's been asking for so long and it hasn't gotten done. And so this was another step to say, this is a declaration. We need this done as soon as possible. It's unacceptable. It's a huge safety hazard, right? There's no excuse. There's no reason for this. And so part of that resolve was not only a statement to say you need this to get fixed right away, but it was also a piece of it to say that because it's National Grid essentially doing this work through their state, National Grid does a lot of requests through the city as well. And those requests from National Grid come through the city council. We were going to say, we're not going to approve anything. You want to do work over here and over here and over here. Great. Can you please fix these lights first and then we'll approve these other projects?
Playing tough guy. Okay.
It's, again, when it comes down to it, it's a safety issue, right? And you have to, you can only say, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? So many times before, God forbid, somebody gets hurt, right? There is some nasty corners around Quincy Shore Drive, particularly at the beginning side of that when you're coming down, over the Neponset Bridge. And more often than not, people are flying because it's a straightaway for quite some time. And then you hit that nasty corner, right? So at some point you have to stop asking if it's not getting done and just say, you need to get this done now. It's no longer an ask, right? And if it means that we have to say, you can't do this other work until you get this done, then yeah, that's what we have to do, right? So, kudos to him for standing up and saying that, because it is a really dangerous area, even with lighting, let alone without it, right?
Well, days are getting shorter now too, so that's an issue too.
You're right. See, exactly that, right? Like folks are coming home, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And with the days getting shorter, right, to your point, there's a lot of congestion still in that area at that time when it's getting dark and people still out, right? Trying to enjoy as much of the nice weather as possible before they can't anymore. So he actually, so what happens with agendas, and this is a little bit of a side note here, is that agenda items get submitted and we review them. We get them set on, formally an agenda, and then that gets advertised. I was talking earlier about, advertising and making sure that these things are advertised through QATV and the Ledger and the Quincy Sun, so people know, what's on the city council agenda. So even though we discussed it last night, the week before is when everything gets publicized so that people have an opportunity to read through things before the regularly scheduled council.
Yeah, just to show folks, there is an actual agenda that is published.
Yes. Exactly, yes. But I bring that up to say that in the time that Councilor Harris submitted that, our amazing, incredible state representative Bruce Ayers was actually able to move this forward and start getting some of these lights replaced. So Councilor Harris withdrew the resolve, so we didn't have to vote on it or anything last night. Because again, between the time that he submitted this to take this measure, Representative Ayers came in and was able to finally move things along to get them going. And so lights have been being fixed and it has been worked on. So yeah, that's what happens when we all work in partnership with each other, right?
Okay.
And, yeah, it's great. Representative Ayers is phenomenal. So.
Well, there's a great example of legislative action working cooperatively for the benefit of the public good.
100%. No, and the two of them work together very well. They, represent an area that overlaps one another. And so to be able to see that happen, this is how it works, right? Local government, state government came together and made something happen. They fixed something that impacts us every single day, right? And that's why it's important to vote. Please vote on November 2nd.
Absolutely. We glossed over the first item, Nina. I'm assuming it went to Ordinance Committee regarding a change of zoning codes.
It did, and I'm very excited for it. This is something that quite a number of people actually have been championing for quite some time, myself included, that I'm very excited about. A lot of folks, across the board, it's different specific issues, but I believe it all relates back to the same thing, which is zoning, right? I've had folks come to me and talk about, again, congestion or traffic or parking issues, saying like, hey, this person's parked across the street and now I can't get out of my driveway, or a fire truck can't come down this road because what used to be a road that didn't have that many, people living there now have quite a significant more amount of people living there, which means more cars, which means more congestion. So, whether it's a specific issue with like a parking problem at all, I think, or it's congestion or traffic, or, how long it takes to get across the city, or even, folks bringing up an issue about our schools having more kids in them, and how do we balance that and make sure that we're doing the right job of providing resources. I mean, it all comes back to how we're zoning across this city, right? Where are we zoning and being smart about development? I talked about this the last couple of years, which is this mobility plan, and that again goes back to zoning, right? Talking about how if we're developing residential units, where are we doing that? And are we being intentional about building up density? Are we building up density in areas like downtown, right? Are we building up density in areas that are closer to public transportation so that folks are encouraged to not have an alternative, to not have a car and to rather lean on alternative means of transportation, right? Are we being thoughtful about where this congestion is happening? And our zoning codes, granted they were done a decade ago and that might seem like it was recent, but it's not. A lot has changed in 10 years. Joe, a lot has changed in 5 years since I started doing this, right? And so, former Ward 2 Councilor Brad Kroll was championing this for quite some time. Again, myself included, quite a number of my other colleagues. This is something that we want to see happen. We want to take a look across the whole city and say, okay, what are our current zoning laws on what you can build and where you can build it? And let's reassess that, bring in people who know this information very well and can project out for the next 10, 15, 20 years, what's best for the city and where we want to see it go. And let's rezone, let's rezone what and where you can build certain structures. And so, The mayor clearly is on the same page, and he, brought this item in front of us to say that we're going to start that process, which I'm super excited about. And again, that goes into committee, and we'll make sure to have a separate committee meeting so that we can engage the public and dive more in depth to this one specific issue.
Okay, good. So see, there was a lot of meat to the meeting after all.
A lot of meat that will continue
Yeah.
further in depth in committees, but yeah. Mhm.
When is the next full council meeting?
So the full regularly scheduled council meeting, it's a great question. I had it in front of me. It's after the election, so November 8th, Monday, November 8th. Mhm.
Okay, so we'll catch up on that on the 9th if that's okay, but we'll see you
Of
on.
course. I will definitely see you before then, Joe. So
Okay.
don't worry. You're going to see me sooner than that.
Sounds good. Anything else we should let folks know about right now, Nina?
That's it. Just another reminder to make sure to get out and vote. It's every election is important, and again, before I ever ran for office, you couldn't have told me otherwise, right? But now I just can't help but keep reiterating that. So I hope people will go out, whether it's on Monday, whether it's, an absentee ballot, whether it's the day of, whatever they want to do, just make sure you get out and vote.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. Great to talk to you as always.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.